So, as we have a rather packed schedule for this 1 hour, I think it's good that we get going. So, today we're going to hear from the BMS president, Elaine Bignell, and then we're going to hear from senior editors of our four journals and their visions for those journals. We're going to hear from our publisher, Elsevier, and hopefully we're going to have time for a panel discussion about the future of mycology publishing. And at the end, I'd like to announce some initiatives that we hope to begin within the coming year. So first, I'd like to introduce our panel members. So we have Nick, Jan, Ben, and Claire, the senior editors from our four journals. We have Jen from Elsevier, who are the publishers of Fungal Biology Reviews, and Fungal Ecology. Field Mycology is published in-house by the BMS. From the Society, we have Professor Elaine Bignell, who is the president of the Society, and myself. I am the chair of the Publications Committee. But more importantly, you, because we really want to hear about your views on the future of mycology publishing. Okay, so in the chat function, we hope that you can be quite active this afternoon and give us some insights into what you think are the hot topics for future special issues or invited reviews in one of our journals. What do you look for when you're submitting to a mycology journal? And how could we make the BMS journals more attractive to you? How could the BMS and our journals better promote mycology publishing? What publishing training would be beneficial for you as early career mycologists? And what you could do to help support the community. So I think this is really important and it enables you to engage in the future of publishing in our journals. So we'd really be keen to hear your input for that. And we'll discuss that later on with our panel. So now I'd like to pass over to President Professor Elaine Bignell for her vision on the BMS journals.
Thank you, Neil, for that introduction. And thank you very much for organising the event. I'd like to welcome everyone. And I'd like to also thank all of the presenters and the participants. We've organised this webinar because we recognise the importance of promoting mycology and mycological science internationally. As a society, that is our primary mission. And the BMS journals form a significant component of delivering that mission. We want to evolve a community that supports the evolution of our journals and the content and celebrates the science that is reported in those. And we want to be able to maximise the utility of these journals as a vehicle to promote mycology on an international scale and to make sure that the visibility of that research reaches diverse audiences and promotes our discipline and grows its capacity significantly in the future. So to begin with, I just want to focus on the strength and the breadth and the visibility and furthering the discipline of mycology as a benefit of utilising these journals and invite you to comment and add questions into the chat on how we can achieve these goals in the future. So all of our journals have a strong reputation on a worldwide basis, and this is evolved over many years. We're going to hear more about this from all of the senior editors of the journals. They cover significant breadth of mycological research and all of the subdisciplines across 4 publications. They are delivered under a British Mycological Society subscription model. And that means if you subscribe as a BMS member, that they are free. The content is free to access, but it's also free to publish in these journals under the subscription model. There is a possibility in many regions of the world to access content for free via concessions that are delivered by Elsevier for developing economies. And we'll hear more about that from Jen later on. And there is excellent underpinning infrastructure. The BMS, Elsevier, and the editor-in-chief collaboration is working together to expand the visibility and reach of our journals. And there's more work on the horizon. The webinar today marks the beginning of a robust partnership going forwards to try to improve the visibility and the offering that the journals can make for our community. And I also want to highlight what I feel is a significant additional benefit for the discipline as a whole, which is that the subscription-based model delivers revenue that the British Mycological Society feeds directly back into sustaining and increasing capacity in the field of mycology via BMS initiatives that benefit both members and non-members all over the world. So examples would be the delivery of grants and awards to mycologists internationally. As a non-member, you can apply for small grants. As a non-member, as a member, you can apply for small grants. As a non-member, you can nominate or be nominated for awards from the BMS. And of course, if you feel that you want to join the society as a member, you can also benefit from the concessions under the subscription model. We also support events and conferences internationally with this funding that again is open to individuals who are based all over the world. So I think that this benefit is a benefit that has an impact upon our community and the discipline that goes far beyond what we can do through our publishing efforts, and it's not highlighted often enough. So with that, I want to move on and invite the contributions of the people who are working on the journals and publishing them. Thanks very much.
Hello. My name is Nick Money. I'm representing Fungal Biology, which is the BMS journal with the broadest scope. I'm one of three senior editors. My co-editors are Simon Avery and Jeffrey Gadd in the UK. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the journal and some plans that we have over the next few months. So fungal biology, we publish contributions, original contributions in all basic and applied fields of mycology, fungal biology. We also are interested in papers on fungus-like organisms. That would require a seminar on its own here. But so water molds, members of the Oomycetes, we publish papers on those fungus-like microorganisms and also on slime molds. And if you look online, you'll see, well, we got a representative cover here with some ascospores and then the highlights that are listed there. And I picked this one in particular because it shows that we publish special issues of the journal on a regular basis. Let's have a look at the next slide. Ours is, I suppose, if you like, the oldest of the journals published by the British Mycological Society. You can see here this testament to diversity in 1895, the founders of the British Mycological Society and the journal that was the Transactions of the British Mycological Society. Go to the next slide if you would. Oh, I should mention too, since I mentioned diversity there, we've got 27 editors today, and that includes the three senior editors that I mentioned. And we have representatives from 12 different countries. We're a very international board of associate editors. And I suppose there we go, returning to that slide then. Transactions, that was the original title of the journal that was published until 1989. That transitioned to Mycological Research in 1989. And from 2010 to the present, we've been Fungal Biology. And we've seen changes in the journal associated with those shifts in title. What else have we got here? As I said, we're the journal with the broadest scope. Um, these are some of the fields that we consider then, all the way from the bottom up here: mutualisms, mycorrhizal interactions, medical mycology, plant pathology, ecology, cell and molecular biology, and also probably a growing number of papers in the areas of biotechnology and biodeterioration. Next slide. As I mentioned at the outset, we publish special issues with some regularity. Here are a couple of the most recent ones. We had a special issue that celebrated the work of Naresh Magan, who passed away recently, and so we had contributions there from authors that had worked with Naresh and others that had studied in similar areas of interest. More recently, then, resilience in the mycelial network is another theme that's just was recently published. I'll actually show you a couple of titles of papers from that issue shortly. Forthcoming issues, so the ones that we've got in the pipeline now, we're doing a special issue on food mycology next year, and also one on fungal stress in 2026. And these are often associated with international meetings, and so we'll have a call for papers from contributors to those international meetings. What else? Let's have a look at the next slide. Yeah, just some recent highlights here. These are just some of the most interesting papers in my view that we've published just within the last 12 months. An interesting paper on systematics. Think globally, barcode locally. Think globally, barcode locally. Cell molecular biology, a beautiful paper on circadian clock function in Neurospora. That was a really great paper. Another one on antioxidant physiology in a mycoparasitic species of trichoderma. Ecology, another nice paper on the secret life of Pericularia in the rhizosphere. Mycorrhizas, so some interactions between organisms here. What have we got? It's actually blocking me here, but anyway, a myco, I can't see that word. Anyway, you can read this, I can't. A cosmopolitan serendipiter forms something, microthalli. Anyway, these are mycorrhizal type relationships with Antarctic leafy liverworts. Last thing here in biotech, Agaricus bisporus mushrooms. There's a really nice paper on mushroom physiology. That was one that I handled, and yeah, beautiful paper, sort of classical physiology. And I think I'm done. We'll move on to the next journal title. So thanks for your time.
Welcome, everyone. And I would like to introduce to you our journal, Fungal Biology Reviews, a journal entirely dedicated to review papers in the area of mycology. Not these are very long manuscript, but shorter ones that can show the development in certain areas of mycology in its full breadth, indeed including also organisms that were once seen as fungi and are also in the field, like the oomycetes and the Microsporidia slime molds. They're all very welcome if you have views on that to review it. So relatively short reviews. We dream also to see and saw during the last year technical focus reviews. You can imagine that certain techniques, a nice succinct paper on those techniques, what is known, would be extremely welcome to our journal. Our unique selling point, Irina Družinina and I, both senior editors, we dream of a platform of exchange of thoughts in the field of mycology in opinion and hypothesis papers. So these could initiate discussions in the field. And we hope that this will increase and increase during the last year. So we have more of these papers where you can see a certain opinion and hypothesis reflected. We had 2 editorials and book reviews into it, and a stark increase in the number of submissions, but not from the UK. So I welcome people that are members of the British Mycological Society to adapt. And the picture is a colored freeze scanning microscopy showing a community of organisms, as the word community, the mycological community, is showing. And please, there might be another slide. We also, Irina and I, found important to have editorials that introduce the papers, so you can find the editorials. We also hope to set several discussions there, open it. So 3 journals, mostly dedicated to review papers, and the other ones mostly dedicated to research manuscripts, research work. What we love would see more submissions from the UK, and also increase of our editorial board from people from the UK, and further growth, I have to say, in the number of published manuscripts. So, and we really dream of these discussions that are initiated and going on in our journal. And welcome you as publishing in our journal.
Hello, everyone. I'm Benjamin Wolf. I'm one of the 2 editors-in-chief at Fungal Ecology. This journal was started back in 2008 by Professor Lynn Boddy, and Allison and I have been carrying the torch forward to allow this journal to continue to flourish, to publish a range of different papers in fungal ecology. We have an amazing team of 40 editors from around the world. Many different countries are represented. And we work really hard to thoroughly, rigorously, and efficiently evaluate all manuscripts that come to the journal so we can support authors as they publish in our journal. On our next slide, we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we look for in our papers. It's important, unlike some of the other journals that are broader in their scope, fungal ecology is a little bit more narrow in scope, so it's important to consider what we publish. A lot of our papers cover some kind of ecological process, including fungal community assembly. We also have quite a few papers on the roles of fungi in ecosystem processes and fungal ecophysiology. Recently, we've been seeing an increase in the number of papers on mechanistic studies of fungal ecology. So how do fungi interact with their environment? What are the genes or traits that can explain patterns of fungal diversity? We have a lot of papers on interactions, and this can span from lichen ecology to plant pathogen interactions to bacterial fungal interactions. We also publish papers on genomics and genetics, but these papers usually have a very specific ecological or evolutionary focus. So they could be looking at population dynamics of a rare species or thinking about how fungi might adapt to their local environment. We also publish papers on conservation biology and sort of larger landscape or even global scale processes in fungal ecology. And we also encourage folks to submit modeling and quantitative studies. So maybe you aren't actually collecting data from real biological systems, but instead trying to model some kind of phenomenon that can explain something in fungal ecology. I want to point out this is not an exhaustive list. These are just some ideas of the types of things that we publish in the journal. Now you'll see on the next slide, we also have some things we want to point out that are not in scope. So we do get quite a few submissions that are simply, I went out and sequenced a whole bunch of environments, and here's my sequence data. We really want to make sure we're not just publishing sequencing surveys. We want to have clear ecological questions that are being addressed. The other thing that we sometimes struggle with is someone will be submitting a paper, but there really isn't an ecological context, right? It's just maybe one specific biological feature of a fungus, but not really in an ecological setting. There also are papers that we get submitted sometimes where fungi are really a minor component. It's actually a paper about plants or an animal, and fungi are just a small part of that paper. We don't publish those. And we also do not publish species lists. So when folks go out and do surveys and collect sporocarps, for example, that's more appropriate for other journals. On our next slide, you'll see a couple of different examples of recent papers from the journal I just wanted to feature, showing the range of work that we publish. So on the left, we have a paper using these really interesting microfluidic devices to look at how arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi move through space in a very quantitative and controlled way. In the middle, we have a very recent review on using the internal transcribe spacer as a marker in fungal ecology studies. This is a very important topic. And this review, I think, has been serving the community quite well, and I encourage you to check it out if that's something you're interested in. And finally, on the right, we have an example of a recent paper doing metagenomics of fungi in extreme environments to understand what fungi live in places that are incredibly cold or incredibly hot. So on our next slide, I just want to point out a really exciting special issue that's coming up on the topic of fungal conservation. So this is addressing both macro and micro fungi and thinking about conservation in all kinds of ecosystems and habitats. So thinking about what are some of the rare species that are out there, thinking about the history of fungal conservation. How do we use new tools to address big challenges in the conservation of fungi, both now and in the future? We welcome papers for that. The deadline is the end of January in the upcoming year. And our two editors, Susanna and Jonathan, that are guest editors working on that, their email addresses are there if you'd like to contact them for more information. We're really excited about this special issue and the contributions that will be made there.
Over to field mycology. So this one is a bit different to the other three journals that are published with Elsevier. Field mycology is produced by field mycologists for field mycologists. So it's typically the sort of expert amateur community, but it's not restricted to those. We invite articles from a diverse array of contributors, including researchers pursuing their field interests. So the focus of field mycology is primarily on the wild fungal diversity of the British Isles. So we publish on species that are new to Britain or otherwise interesting to report. And it has more of a kind of newsy and information sharing vibe to it, because a good proportion of our readership consume it, as in this picture here, as a magazine. So it is a journal. It's a scientific publication. All the articles are reviewed by our editorial team, but it's also a magazine, and we try and bear that in mind in the way that we invite articles and copy edit articles so that they will be readable and accessible to a non-expert audience. And the scope includes all aspects of fungal identification, recording, and scientific collection, and particularly fungus conservation. We've had a focus on this year with regular articles about news and developments in the field of UK fungus conservation. Oh, next slide, please. So the highlights slide, I've just recently taken over as the editor of Field Mycology after the previous editor, Geoffrey Kibbe, did a 25-year stint. So it was hard for me to pick some highlights because there's just such a diverse array of articles, and I think people will find their own highlights when they dip into the back catalogue. And a major highlight for me this year has been thanks to a really positive relationship with our former publishers at Elsevier and great support from the British Mycological Society. We have taken Field Mycology to be a fully open access publication, so anyone can dip into the archives and read the articles that have been published to date.
And my little graph there, as well as the people who subscribe to the print magazine, we've started to keep track on the new website, fieldmycology.org, of the number of issue downloads since we launched the website earlier this year. And I think I can see a trend tracking upwards in the number of people downloading each issue of Field Mycology, getting up to about 600 issues in October. So I'm hoping that next year we'll continue to see that number going up and more people getting excited about field mycology and feeling that they are part of the field mycology community. That's me.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Wood. I am the publisher for the BMS journals at Elsevier. I'm the publisher for microbiology and then specifically within mycology as well. And I work closely with the editors of the BMS journals and with the BMS to help these journals really meet their potential. But I thought, seeing as you've heard from the individual editors of the journals about the specifics of the publications, I would talk about something a little bit broader, which is relevant to all journals and might be interesting. So, impact metrics. This is a really important topic now, I think, even more than ever, with the rise of AI and such a global academic community, that we really need to make sure we're validating properly the content that we are interacting with. And this is from the perspective of an author, as a reviewer, and as a reader, of course, and also for the editors of the journal. So there are a range of impact metrics that we have available. Here's just some of them. This is not all of them. And I would always recommend using a combination of metrics to assess a journal or a specific article. So these ones, impact factor and site score, I mean, everyone knows impact factor, but I will talk a little bit more about these two because I think it's interesting to know the differences between them. They're quite similar, but there are important differences. Eigenfactor is an interesting one that I think not that many people sort of know about, but it's based on a similar calculation to the impact factor, looking at an average of citations over a given time frame, but it takes into account the ranking of the citing journal as well. So a citation from the Lancet would be worth more than a citation from a lower ranking journal, for example. The SNP is an interesting metric. This is source normalized impact per paper, and this takes into account cross-disciplinary areas where citation turnover is very different in different research areas. So genetics or cancer research, areas like that would have a very fast turnover of citations typically. And then some other areas like social sciences or psychology have a much slower turnover. But this allows it to be measured based on the norm for that field. So you can compare things like university rankings where there's a whole range of different topics being studied. Very useful for publishers as well, of course, looking across subject areas, but also if you're doing cross-disciplinary research. And the H-index, of course, is for individual researchers. And this is, I'm sure everyone is aware of it, but maybe not everyone knows how it's calculated. Just if you're interested, it means if you had a H-index of 10, you've published at least 10 papers, and each of those papers has at least 10 citations. So it's very difficult to actually work up a good H-index. Unfortunately, there are lots of ways of gaming it in the modern world as well. So always do double check if you're using H-indexes for any sort of evaluations. Okay, but I'm going to look now a bit more at the site score and impact factor, which are probably the most common ones that you would be looking at. So what's the difference between the two? And importantly, I want to cover what they do tell you and what they don't tell you. So site score is over a 4-year window. It's always slightly higher than the impact factor because of that longer time frame. And the impact factor, generally the 2-year one, is what people tend to use to look at. And the site score is a very simple calculation of the citations in a 4-year window divided by the number of articles published in that 4-year window. So it's transparent. You can easily see how that is calculated. And it has a tracker which builds up each month, which is, nice to see the development of that throughout the year. The impact factor is all the citations in a given year, 2 articles published in the 2 years previous, so taking into account the lag in time that it takes for citations to accumulate to published articles, and that is divided by the number of articles published in those 2 years. An important thing to be aware of with the impact factor is that it doesn't include all article types in that denominator number. It only includes the major article types. So, research and review articles would always be included. But smaller article types like editorials, letters, and news items aren't typically included. And for some publications, they do publish a number of these kind of articles, and they do receive a lot of citations. The citations are all counted in that top number in the calculation, but the actual article types aren't. So it can really inflate impact factors for publications that kind of use this slightly different model. Not for the BMS journals, because we don't really publish that many article types like that. But it's just something to be aware of when you're, assessing different journals using these metrics. Okay, and now I will just demonstrate why you can't pick a single article out of a high impact journal and expect that particular article to be very highly cited. The impact factor or the site score, they don't tell you anything about any individual article. And that's really important to remember, to always assess articles on their own merit. So this graph shows a typical citation distribution for the impact factor window, and it shows 15% of the articles actually contributing 50% of the citations, and then 50% of the articles contributing 85% of the citations. So those other 50% of the articles really contributing very little. They haven't been cited very much, or many of them won't have been cited at all. And this really is typically what we see. There will be a couple of really well cited articles, and then many of the others are not so well cited. So please bear that in mind when you look at this number, which everyone is kind of a little bit excited by, and some people quite obsessed with. The impact factor really does not tell you everything. So please take a combination of metrics into consideration. Okay, and then if I you can also have a look at the individual impact of metrics on Science Direct. But I just want to quickly cover publication options on the next slide, if you could, because I think this is important. So moving away from metrics for a moment, I just think this is important information that Elaine mentioned earlier as well. So the BMS journals are hybrid, which means you can choose to publish under the subscription model, or you can choose open access. If you are mandated by your funder to publish open access, there's a couple of options available. So the first is our Research for Life programme, and that covers low-income countries to publish either with a full waiver or with a 50% waiver, depending on how low income the country is, and all the details of those countries are on the Research for Life website. And the other option is via the open access agreements that institutions have with Elsevier. So just within the UK, we have an agreement that covers 155 universities, and it completely covers the APC for publishing open access in hybrid journals. And we have these worldwide, so many institutions will have an agreement. So please double check that before you choose your publishing route, because if you can publish open access, then that's of course a good idea. And under the open access model, the copyright is kept with the author, and then there is no restrictions on the readership globally for those articles. But if you do not have funding, the option is available to publish under the subscription model for no fee. And that is no fee at all for the author. Then the article would be behind the paywall, so all the subscribers to the journal can still read that article, and of course all the institutions worldwide that are subscribed to the journals, which are a lot. Okay, thank you. I think that's me.
So we now move to the panel discussion, chaired by Elaine. Maybe I can propose the first question, and we can discuss what are the panelists' opinions on hot topics in mycology.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm gonna look for an excited panel member to pass this one over to. Well, I'm going to begin because I'm not. Look at this. Yes, go on then. Go on, Benjamin.
I think one of the things that we're seeing, at least in the fungal ecology space, is the use of emerging global data sets to really think about fungi at a global scale. Historically, it's been really hard to do that, right? It's really hard to get samples from all across the world. But now, after many, many years of many people collecting all kinds of data sets that are being put into databases, we can now ask those questions at a global scale. So I think that's something we're seeing at fungal ecology and something that we're hoping to encourage authors continue to use.
Thanks for that, Benjamin. I know that the One Health topic is a really important topic at the moment that crosses many interdisciplinary boundaries, but also likely all of the subdisciplines of mycology. So one might imagine a big story that could transcend and work across all of the journals together, and that would be a great exercise in maximizing visibility of that issue that has traditionally focused mainly on other sorts of organisms rather than fungi. So do you have another question from our audience, Neil, or should we?
Yeah, so do you believe there are any other cross-journal topics that could be a special theme across our journals beyond One Health? Maybe crossing molecular biology and field ecology, etc.
Any takers? Yeah, Claire.
I do think it's a really interesting area. So I've been really impressed by the quality of the work that the field mycology community is doing. Often people working independently in small local groups or organizing themselves at a regional level. And there's a huge capacity there of people studying fungi and reporting on their finds. And I think there's definitely something to explore about how we can connect that with the academic community who, understand things like the code of nomenclature, and who can put that work into context when people, some field mycologists are finding, undescribed species all the time. But I think it would be doing a disservice to mycology to try and describe all of those individually because they need to be put into their place. And I think a sort of conversation across the journals about how that can work and how we can fully engage across the communities of mycologists would be really welcome.
Thanks, Claire. And I'd like to just quickly pick up on that point before we move on to some other topics, because out with of the One Health question, many of our members and some of our audience may be aware that that Wellcome had an initiative this year to focus on the biology of fungal adaptation. This was intended to emphasize the incredible versatility of fungi and what happens, when fungi are exposed to selective pressures in the environment. Of course, drug resistance has really opened our eyes to that plasticity, but there's the issue of climate change and the impacts of climate change on lots of levels on the planet and how that's going to affect ecology and the pathogenicity of organisms in the natural environment going forward. So that's one program and an expanding area of research and human interest where the connection between molecular biology and ecology could really deliver some impact. So it will be interesting to see how those projects evolve going forwards and how that program evolves. But there's a collective there that we could be able to connect with already. And there's clear interest across the readership, I think, for something in that space.
Thank you. So we do have a question here in the chat that is a little bit specific. Hi there. Is there a BMS journal that includes in its scope a humanities paper? I'm a junior researcher in early modern history, and I'm working on the construction of mycology between 1530 and 1735. Would that be of interest to the BMS?
So yeah, Nick Money here. I think that we'd be very interested. I suppose I'm speaking for the other senior editors. I'd be really interested in actually seeing submissions in this area. We publish that perhaps in the form of a review article, but I think we're open to all suggestions and with any authors that are interested in maybe in sort of what might be regarded as niche areas of study. I just recommend that they actually send an email to me or to one of the other senior editors, sort of making a pitch, just a short, abstract of their paper, perhaps, and then we can discuss this and get back to you pretty swiftly. But that sounds very interesting to me, and particularly that time frame. So, I mean, there are papers on mycological history, and frankly, I think they tend to get buried in some of the more specialized history of science journals. And I'd love to see this in some of our journals, certainly fungal biology. And I think the readers would be really interested in this kind of area of inquiry.
It's a super interesting topic, and I can comment from the perspective of the BMS on the basis of applications for support for research projects that I've seen coming in. It's an area that's perfectly in scope and would be supportable with research support for members as well.
Yeah, I very much agree with these notifications because history is important, and these topics that are a bit, say, outside the pure science of scientific description, I find them extremely interesting to add in our journals, and this example from Anne Constance is one of them. Yeah, I would also highly support what Nick is saying and what you are saying.
So maybe we could move on from hot topics. And now, for the benefit of early career researchers, either in the audience or watching this back later, maybe the editors could describe how an early career researcher might become a reviewer or a junior editorial board member.
Maybe I'll just start us off by saying that we really encourage everybody to get involved with the reviewing process. It may be that your PI is asked to review a paper, and then we would say it's great if they can ask for help with that from more junior members of their lab. And as long as that's just disclosed when they do their review, then that's a great way of kind of getting involved. But also, if you are interested in reviewing for a particular journal, you can go onto Reviewer Hub for the Elsevier journals and volunteer for a specific journal. And then the editors will see your name when they go to invite reviewers under a special section of volunteered reviewers. And so they know that those people are particularly keen, and you're much more likely to be invited to review that way. The more reviews you do, of course, you build up your portfolio, and then ideally that's where we look for our board members, is from our top reviewers. And so the process for coming up through the journal starts.
So that sounds like a great initiative, and I'd just like to highlight that the community of early, what's early? Can be very early, all the way up to mid-career, I guess. But we're evolving a really robust community of early career researchers in the UK and internationally amongst our membership. And we know that this is of interest to them. And also, we'd like to be able to encourage a lot more activity from our membership in supporting the review as well as the submission of papers. So I'd just like to ask Benjamin and Nick and Jan whether or not they could see either specific opportunities for ECRs in the review space, or maybe even in the space of special issues moving forwards. Is this a community that we could champion across the journals in some way?
Yeah, I think to get editorial experience, I think special issues are a really great entry point because it's very focused. It's one particular period of time. You'll get onboarded by senior editors or other editors to sort of teach you how the review process works. And that's a great thing to learn both for your own writing and for yourself as a scientist, but it's also a great way to figure out how to contribute to the scientific community. And we're very open to lots of ideas at Fungal Ecology. We also appreciate anyone who is starting their own research group and wants to be an editor to reach out and talk about what that would look like. We are always looking to take on new editors to join our editorial board, especially from different parts of the world that maybe aren't represented by our editorial board right now. So please just send us an email and we'd be happy to talk about those opportunities.
Jan.
Yeah, I would be happy to say that when early career researchers and PhD students are completing their thesis, then they have this introductory chapter and they have their conclusion chapter. That is very good material to make short, not these sometimes intimidating book-like reviews, but make very short and nice extra papers that are submitted because you did research on the topic, you are an expert, and had become an expert, and now can give you vision in a short, nice review. Then we are very welcoming these.
And what a super initiative that would be for our graduating students. Nick?
I was just gonna, I was going to agree with Jan there, and I think particularly with a doctoral student that they're finishing their dissertation. I mean, it's a perfect time really for them to think about writing a review article. They should know the broad scope of their field of inquiry maybe better than most, and yeah, I'm always telling grad students to do that, and I think very few of them take me up on the offer, but yeah. Perfect way to actually get some citations and begin to get an H index, right?
Yeah, and we really do find that this community are incredibly enthusiastic about building a network and promoting the visibility of their work. So if we can in some way, get behind that and provide them with a mechanism to deliver those outputs, it would be a really wonderful outcome, I think. So I just wanted to, on the topic of special issues, just loop quickly back to a point you'd raised, Nick, about the special issues that cover conference proceedings. Are those solicited, or can those be, are you happy to be approached by conference organisers on that topic?
Yeah, either way. I mean, the
Mhm.
senior editors, especially if they're involved with the conference, will get involved in designing a future special issue. But for organizers of conferences, international conferences, maybe just national conferences, yeah, absolutely, make a pitch. We're always open to ideas.
Great, thanks.
So maybe one last topic, and I believe this one is for Elaine. So could you maybe outline, you mentioned community, other ways that early career researchers could engage within the BMS in the future?
Yes. We are always looking for members to engage with the activities of the BMS, and the range of those activities can be incredibly diverse. If you are working at undergraduate level, then you can apply for funding to undertake summer scholarships in research institutions and other workplaces. I hasten to emphasize other workplaces around the UK. We have a number of committees that undertake work for the society. So our publications committee is one of those. We have education and outreach. We have a fungal biology research committee, and all of the committees across the board, and a field mycology committee. They are all heavily invested in delivering particular aspects of the BMS strategy. We are in need of junior participants on those committees. So that's another way in which you can get involved. You can connect with us through the annual scientific meeting. So we now have a special one-day opening component to the annual scientific conference of the BMS that is free to early career registrants, organised by early career registrants, and it's an incredibly vibrant community of engaged individuals who are working hard to build a network around the UK and nationally. I think at this point I'm going to just bring in Claire, who's got a really excellent grasp of the field mycology community and activities to complement my academic spin on things.
Thank you.
What, in terms of how to
just engaging, we're going to call these budding enthusiasts.
Well, I've been wondering this myself. They get together through the autumn and spring survey events, so there's kind of opportunities to talk to them slightly en masse there, and through group leaders events that take place biannually, I think, in the summer. So I think putting some thought into what we might take to those meetings and get people thinking about would be worth thinking about in advance.
Yeah, that sounds super. And also just like to highlight that the BMS delivers online talks in sessions not too dissimilar from this one, that last year featured a large number of our early career researchers delivering talks online. So please just contact the BMS office and we can get some of those scheduled too.
Okay, so maybe I can wrap up now with if I can share my screen again. Is it visible?
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for your attention this afternoon. just to close the event, we'd like to highlight some awards and initiatives we are taking into consideration this year, and we hope to begin in the near future. So we would like to establish a new award called Best Published Paper in a BMS Journal, and then we would be able to invite the first author of the winning publication from one of our 4 journals to the BMS annual conference to give an invited talk. Then we have the Best BMS Reviewer Award. So here, editors such as those that are here today would nominate the most effective and engaged early career reviewer from their journals. The Publications Committee and Elsevier will decide the winner, and they too will be invited to attend a BMS scientific meeting. Okay, so hopefully there'll be some extra awards to encourage people to engage within our journals and scientific events. But we also want to help support our early career researchers in their training for mycology publishing. So we are looking to start a series of webinars to help support that. So this might be on topics which could be informed by communications with you, such as how not to get rejected by a BMS journal. I remember I got rejected by PNAS once within 15 minutes. Try and get quicker than that. How to review for a scientific journal, such as one of the BMS journals, and how to publish with integrity. Okay, so if you think there are pressing needs that the BMS and our community can help support you with, please get in touch with me and I will help create events that are designed for you. Now, I'd finally like to thank our panel for all of their time today and their effort. I found it really informative and I hope the audience did too. Thank you.
Thank you.